Rain slid down the tinted dome of Eden 7's arrival terminal, streaking the glass like tears from a god. Jace Mercer, Earthborn mechanic turned interstellar migrant, stepped off the transport ship, boots crunching against the perfectly smooth floor. The air smelled like lavender and static electricity. Behind him, a dozen other Earthmen disembarked, their faces pale with anxiety. They all knew the rule. Everyone did. The law of daily joy. You either brought joy to a native woman of Zephyria Prime once a day, or you got sent home. And not to Earth, but to the mining moons. Lifelong exile. Slavery, basically. Jace gritted his teeth. No one on Earth warned them what joy meant. Everyone pretended it was just a diplomatic agreement. A cultural thing. No one told him the women were 9 feet tall, silver-skinned, and biologically dominant. No one told him it was dangerous to disappoint them. He rubbed the band on his wrist. The compliance monitor. It tracked his joy output, synced with the neurological receptors of the Zephyrian women. One bad day, and it'd glow red. Today was day 1. Jace walked into the welcome hall. Towering plants glowed in soft hues. Music played from unseen sources, melodies that made his knees feel weak. Then he saw her. A Zephyrian ambassador. Her name was Virelli. She stood like a statue carved by gods. Long, coiled hair shimmered like quicksilver. Her eyes burned violet, like twin stars on fire. When she looked at Jace, it felt like gravity twisted. She smiled. "Fresh Earthling," she said in a low purr. "You will do." He blinked. "Do what?" "Please me." He laughed, nervously. "You mean, make you happy, right? Like, emotionally?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer, each stride a thunder in his chest. "Emotionally. Mentally. Physically. Every way a man can please a woman. What happens if I can't?" She touched the band on his wrist. "You get reassigned. And you don't want that." He nodded, heart hammering. "Okay. So, what do I do now?" Virelli tilted her head. "Come with me. Let me show you joy." The room they entered pulsed with heat and scent. Exotic spices clung to the air. Jace's thoughts scattered. He'd never been so close to someone who radiated that much raw power. "Sit," she said. He did. She poured a drink, amber liquid fizzing with sparks. "This is Kalari wine. Drink it. It helps humans open up." He took a sip. Warmth spread in his belly. "Now," she said, sitting beside him, "tell me what brings you joy." He blinked. No one ever asked him that. Tinkering. Fixing engines. Making things hum. She nodded. "Good. We will use that. What about you? What makes you happy?" Her eyes narrowed, amused. "Curiosity. Bravery. Willingness to explore." She leaned closer. "Tonight, I will test your courage. Not with weapons, but with intimacy." Jace's throat dried. This was more than sex. It was ritual. And performance. And she wasn't alone. Another Zephyrian woman entered, younger, eyes like frosted steel. Virelli said, "This is Savi. She will observe." Observe? She's learning how to receive joy. The words twisted in Jace's gut. He wasn't ready for this. But backing out wasn't an option. Virelli stepped closer, breath warm against his ear. "Don't think. Just *B*. And so, he was. When it was over, Jace lay panting, drenched in sweat, heart racing. His wristband pulsed green. Virelli stroked his hair. "You did well." He tried to speak, but his tongue was a brick. She pressed a finger to his lips. "Rest. Tomorrow is another day. Another joy." He closed his eyes, but sleep never came. In the dark, he heard Savi whisper to Virelli. "He is different." "Yes," Virelli said. "He may survive." The next morning, Jace walked the city alone. Zephyria Prime shimmered like a jewel. Towers spiraled into the clouds. Hovercraft zipped by like insects. Yet beneath the beauty, a tension rippled. Other Earthmen looked hollow-eyed. Some bandages covered wrists. Others had red glowing monitors. He passed one man who collapsed in the plaza. Medics came. But no one looked surprised. It was just another failed attempt at joy. Jace shivered. A whisper came from behind. "You're not like the others." He turned. "Savi. Why are you following me?" "You pleased Virelli. That's rare. I didn't do anything special." "You asterisk listened star. You asterisk cared star." She hesitated. "Do you want to know the truth about the law of daily joy?" He nodded slowly. She pulled him into an alley. "The law was never about pleasure. It's about compatibility. Our race is dying. The joy we take is part of a process, genetic bonding. If we don't find matches, we perish." Jace's stomach turned. "So we're breeding stock?" "Not all of you. Only the ones who bond deeply. The rest, they burn out." "And Virelli, does she know?" "She helped write the law." Jace backed away. "I need to go." Savi caught his arm. "You're different, Jace. That scares them. And excites them." He yanked his arm free. Ran. But no matter how fast he ran, the band on his wrist stayed green. And he could still feel Virelli's touch, like a brand burned into his skin. That night, the band glowed brighter than ever. And someone was watching from the shadows. End of section 1. Rain returned the next evening, but this time it was warm. It hit the metallic roofs of Zephyria like liquid fire, glowing faintly in the city's twilight. Jace sat at the edge of a floating park, feet dangling just above a glimmering cloud layer. His wristband still glowed green, steady, stubborn. But his mind was tangled. He couldn't forget what Savi had said. Genetic bonding. Compatibility. A dying race. Were Earthmen volunteers, or sacrifices? Behind him, footsteps. Light, deliberate. "You ran from me," Virelli's voice cut through the air like silk against steel. Jace didn't turn. "I needed space." She sat beside him. The bench bent slightly beneath her weight. "Humans always need space. Even when it kills them." He laughed dryly. "You sound disappointed." "No," she said. Intrigued. He finally looked at her. Same silver glow, same violet fire. But tonight, her face held something else. Fatigue. Doubt. "Did you write the law?" he asked. She didn't flinch. "I enforced it." "That's not the same. You knew Earthmen would break." "We hoped they wouldn't. We hoped they'd adapt. And when they didn't." She looked away. "We refined the metrics. Made the wristbands more sensitive. More exacting." Jace's heart pounded. So the ones who failed, they weren't weak. Just misread. Virelli stood. Her hair glimmered like a blade. "The law is changing. You're part of the change. But change costs something." She walked away, slow, regal. Jace didn't follow. The next morning, Savi found him again. This time near the glacial gardens, where ice blooms grew in midair. She was wearing Earth-style clothes, jeans and a jacket too small for her frame. "Trying to blend in?" he asked. She smiled. "Trying to understand. You humans dress for weather. We dress for intent. What's your intent now?" "To warn you." She stepped closer. "Not all Zephyrians support the law anymore. Some believe Earthmen dilute the purity of our line. That includes Virelli's rivals." "Rivals?" "The Consort Council. 5 women who oversee all bonding assignments. They've seen your file. Your wristband. They think you're too unpredictable." Jace's mouth dried. "What does that mean?" "They want to test you. A final trial. If you pass, you stay. If you fail, mining moons." She nodded. "When?" "Tonight." The test wasn't a challenge of strength or stamina. It was memory. Empathy. Insight. A room with 1 chair. 1 candle. And a woman Jace had never seen before. Her name was Kaylin. She was old, by Zephyrian standards. Maybe 200. Her eyes were clear blue, unreadable. Her skin shimmered less, her posture more rigid. "You have 15 minutes, she said. "Impress me." Jace Saturday. Silent. Studying her. She waited. Then he asked, Do you miss someone? Kaylin blinked. The question hit her like a pebble in a still lake. Yes, she whispered. Who? She hesitated. My bondmate. Dead a decade. How did she make you feel? Kaylin's eyes narrowed, but she answered. Balanced. Seen. Then you know what joy really is. Do you? Jace swallowed. Not until now. Afterward, Savi found him in the hall. She cried. That hasn't happened in 50 years. Jace exhaled slowly. Then alarms blared. What's that? Security breach, Savi said, grabbing his hand. It's not about you. Not directly. Come. They rushed to the atrium. Screens lit up. Images flickered of other Earthmen. Monitors flashing red. One man seized violently in a corridor. Another was dragged away. What's happening? Virelli appeared on screen. Her voice was like thunder. The Consort Council has been dissolved. The law of daily joy is being rewritten, effective immediately. Earthmen will no longer be penalized for non-compliance. They will now have a choice. Gasps filled the room. Jace stared. You did this. Savi nodded toward Virelli. No asterisk she asterisk did. You just gave her the reason. That night, the sky cracked open. Not with lightning, but with fireworks. Zephyrians danced in the streets, celebrating the end of a century-old mandate. Jace found Virelli in her private chamber, standing under a lightfall. Her eyes were wet. Why? He asked. Because I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. A man brave enough to feel. To ask. To care. She walked toward him. Slower than usual. Softer. We don't need slaves. We need partners. He stepped into her arms. And I need you, she whispered. The wristband shattered itself in a burst of sparks. End of Section 2. Morning broke with golden flares across Zephyria Prime's skyline. No alarms. No system messages. No quotas. Just silence. Jace woke up in Virelli's chamber, the silver canopy overhead shifting colors with the dawn. For the first time since he'd landed, the band on his wrist was gone. No tracking. No expectations. He touched the raw skin where it had clamped for days. The ache wasn't physical. Virelli stirred beside him. Her hand brushed his. You're free now. Then why do I feel more trapped than ever? She studied him. Because now, the choices are yours. And that's heavier than any law. Jace rose, pulling on the half-Earth, half-Zephyrian uniform he'd left folded on the nearby bench. The streets outside buzzed with a cautious kind of celebration. Earthmen moved freely, some smiling, some just stunned. But the air carried more than freedom. It carried uncertainty. Later that day, Jace visited the Integration Council's new headquarters, a sleek, glass monolith just outside the Sky Marina. He was invited as an observer. A relic of the transition. Inside, Savi sat at the round table, now a junior delegate. Her smile was tired but genuine. Across from her sat Kaylin. The old and the new, Jace muttered. Quite the table. Kaylin waved him forward. You should sit. You're part of this. He hesitated. I'm not a diplomat. Good, Kaylin said. That makes one of us. Savi tapped the holographic agenda. We're rewriting the law of unity. No more daily mandates. But there's still something we need to address. Jace already knew. The bonding trials. Savi nodded. We stopped the forced part. But many Zephyrians still want connection. They want joy, but real joy. Chosen joy. Kaylin added, and some Earthmen are forming attachments. Emotional, not just chemical. So we're proposing a new system, Savi said. Voluntary pairing. Mutual training. Emotional alignment. Not just physical pleasure. Jace raised an eyebrow. Like, dating? Kaylin actually laughed. Exactly like dating. But cross-species and with potentially planetary stakes. He leaned back. This'll take years. Better years than fear, Savi said. And someone needs to lead the human half of it. You want me? Savi smiled. You already are. The next week blurred. Jace found himself on panels, in meetings, even on Zephyrian holo shows. Some saw him as a traitor. Others, as a bridge. One night, he stood on a balcony overlooking Sector Delta. Virelli joined him, dressed not in regalia but in a simple blue shift. "You look tired," she said. "I feel it. Why keep doing it? You could fade into quiet life. Leave the politics to the rest." He looked at her, eyes rimmed red. "Because I met too many men who didn't make it. And too many women who weren't allowed to feel. This matters." She didn't argue. But she did say, "There's more. More." Not everyone accepted the change. The outer provinces, they've gone silent. Some of the old enforcers have vanished. Jace's stomach turned. A resistance. Not yet. But seeds. 2 nights later, those seeds bloomed. The East Station exploded. Not a bomb, but a pulse weapon. Every Earthman in the radius collapsed. 6 died. Dozens hospitalized. Jace stood in the recovery wing, watching one young man seize violently under a stasis shield. A nurse shook her head. Neural burnout. The wristbands might be gone, but the scars aren't. Savi appeared, her face stone. It was coordinated. Former compliance officers. "And you're sure they're behind this?" She nodded. "They've started calling themselves the Purity Guard." Jace's jaw clenched. "Then we need to end them." "Not with weapons," Savi said. "With unity. They're bombing us. We'll need more than speeches." Virelli entered then, her expression unreadable. "What if we gave them a voice?" "Excuse me? Let them speak. In the open. Broadcast their grievances. Debate us publicly." "That's insane," Jace snapped. "It's fair," she replied. "We created this system in the shadows. It's time we bring the light." The debate was set for the central arena, a massive amphitheater that could hold 10,000. The entire planet would watch. Jace stood on one side, flanked by Kaelin and Savi. On the other, a towering woman named Thessa, former enforcement director. Her eyes burned with old authority. "You're weakening our bloodlines," she began. "Introducing softness where there should be fire." Jace stepped forward. "What you call softness, we call strength. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's growth." The crowd was silent. Thessa pointed at him. "You were never chosen. You were an accident. A misread." "Exactly," Jace said. "And yet, here I am. Not burned out. Not broken. Just human. Still standing. And bonded in a way your metrics could never predict." The audience murmured. Thessa growled. "You defy our traditions. Your traditions failed. That's why we're here." Kaelin rose next. "Tradition without compassion is just tyranny." The debate raged for hours. No clear winner. But the tide shifted. By morning, hundreds of Zephyrians protested outside the Purity Guard's compound. Not with weapons, but with flowers. A silent demand for change. Back in Virelli's chamber, Jace collapsed onto the cushions. She knelt beside him, brushing sweat from his brow. "You've changed more than law," she whispered. "You've changed us." He smiled weakly. "Wasn't part of the plan." She leaned down, her lips grazing his. "The best things never are." End of section 3. The seasons on Zephyria shifted slowly, measured not in months but in phases of the twin moons. As the golden phase waned and the silver phase rose, peace finally returned to the capital. No more wristbands. No more fear. And for the first time in living memory, Earthmen and Zephyrian women sat together in cafes, worked side by side in labs, and laughed in shared languages. Jace stood at the edge of the ocean plains, where the horizon curved into sky and the wind smelled like citrus and warmth. A small crowd had gathered behind him, representatives from Earth, Zephyria, and several newly joined planets. Today was the ratification of the Unity Accord. The ceremony was simple. No fanfare. No fireworks. Just spoken promises. Savi, now co-director of the Unity Council, handed him the final scroll. "Sign it, and we close the old chapter." Jace glanced at the parchment. In both Zephyrian script and Terran Common, it read, No being shall be bound to give joy by force. True joy is given freely, and received by choice. He signed. Thunderous applause rolled over the hills. But Jace's eyes weren't on the crowd. They were on Virelli, standing quietly near the edge of the platform. She walked to him after the crowd began to disperse. They didn't speak at first. They just stood close, fingers brushing. "You didn't just help us survive," she whispered. "You reminded us what it meant to feel. To choose. And you showed me there's more to joy than pleasure," Jace replied. "It's connection. Shared burdens. Vulnerability." She smiled, tilting her head. "So, what now, Earthman?" He looked out across the crowd. Old enemies shaking hands. Young children, half human, half Zephyrian, running through the grass. Laughter where fear used to grow. Now we build. Together. Years passed. Jace never returned to Earth. Not because he couldn't, but because he no longer wanted to. Zephyria had become home not just for him, but for thousands. Cities became integrated. Schools taught both languages. Art blended cultures. And every year on the day the Law of Unity was signed, they celebrated the day of true joy not with rituals or obligations, but with stories. Stories of how things changed. Stories of the ones who risked themselves to make others feel seen. Savi led the education initiatives. Kaylin retired into poetry, her verses now required reading in every school. Even Thessa, the old enforcer, opened a retreat center for healing former compliance victims. And Jace. He taught. Mechanics. Empathy. Negotiation. His classroom was always full. Not because he was famous, but because he was real. Honest. Human. He and Virelli bonded not because of politics or law, but because they chose each other every single day. Their home was small, filled with tools, warmth, and silence that never felt empty. One evening, a young student asked Jace during class, "How did you survive when so many others couldn't?" He paused. "I stopped trying to perform joy," he said. "And I started living it." That night, Jace sat beside Virelli under the same silver moons that once watched over oppression. Now they glowed with peace. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "No," he said. "Even the hardest parts. They led me here. With you." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then we've found it," she whispered. "Real joy. Moral true joy cannot be demanded, assigned, or measured. It's discovered in the quiet choices we make to understand, to connect, to love without force. In a galaxy bound by law, the greatest revolution came from a single human heart daring to ask, **, how can I make you feel seen? */ End of section 4.